main objective is that you leave here feeling wildly comfortable doing practical functional assessment. Completely comfortable. And that's the foundation upon which the treatment is built. And so we're going to spend a lot of time on a process that, when you're really good at it, takes but an hour. But we're going to spend hours building that foundation. Skill-based treatment will then follow. And you should leave here with a complete understanding of the general structure of that process, as well as the particulars to implement it. And so those are our two main objectives. And the last one, the third objective, is that you apply this in an intimate sense with one of your clients. You make sure you leave here and you know how to apply it with a particular learner, and that's really what day 2 is all about. I'm here with Dr. Camilleri and Shannon Ward, soon to be Dr. Ward, probably next month when she defends her final product at Western New England University. Please know that I'm not going to show a whole bunch of data for the sake of showing data. I'm going to show data that's relevant to this process and to practice. And I have the luxury of working with a large team of folks, and it's their studies that have taught me, and it's the families and children we work with that have taught me how to do this process better. I see some familiar faces, and I appreciate you being here again. I think the redundancy can be quite helpful. Sometimes people get frustrated because they say, well, that's not how you talked about this process last year or the year before. That's not how this process is represented in that article in 2017 or even 18. So let me give a caveat. Our practice is way ahead of our research. It takes me 3+ years to publish something. And that's a good speed. Sometimes it takes up to 5 years. My practice is always ahead of my research. And the reason why I appreciate you being here at a workshop like this is I get a chance to share what we do in our practice. So I will be changing things, and please know it's the children teach us how to do this process better. And the children then illuminate, or the young adults illuminate, what the next research questions are when we have curiosities we can't resolve in practice. So there will be something different for you today, even if we were together but months ago. Okay. Let's give a context for what we're doing today. Every professional needs to have a triangle. If you don't know that, if you get a chance to do a training, you must have your own triangle if you're a psychologist. Here's my triangle. Take a look at my triangle. At the top of the triangle is what we're going to talk about today. People call this a Tier 3 intervention in the response to intervention, or the RTI model. We are going to talk about one-to-one intensive assessment and treatment. We also, as a company, work with folks on class-wide levels, like the preschool life skills, curriculum for preventing problem behavior. We also work on class-wide motivational systems. We work on small group life skills training. But today we are focusing on, and tomorrow, the top of the triangle, which is practical functional assessment, or PFA, and skill-based treatment, SBT. We are going to talk about it. Its applicability in the home, center, hospital, clinic, and school. So context, we're going to cover all the context. We are going to talk about it as it relates to children, 12 and under, independent of label. High IQ, low IQ, autism, no autism, psychiatric diagnoses. We have evidence of the efficacy of this process with those children. When it comes to kids over 13 and they have an intellectual disability or the diagnosis of autism, we have evidence that this process applies. What we don't have evidence for is applying this process to you. Folks over 13 years old who are of typical cognitive development. And so please know that's where the boundaries are for the applicability of the processes we're going to talk about today. And again, it does require one-to-one intensive support. It is the top of the triangle. Okay. I'm going to go back. So I'm going to start in somewhat a dark place. Despite this being a lovely venue and nice and wide open, we're going to get a little dark and gloomy. And after we get dark and gloomy, the sun will come out and we'll have some laughs and we'll do the training. But we need to check a few things before we proceed. And so I want you to understand, and I think most of you, especially if you've been in the field for 5 or so years, you recognize the fact that autism does not sap the joy out of the lives of families. It is not autism. There are many families of children with autism that lead as joyous a lifestyle as any other family in this world. It is severe problem behavior that saps the joy out of families with children with autism, young adults with autism, or persons with developmental or intellectual disabilities. It's the severe problem behavior, and that's why I appreciate the opportunity to focus on severe problem behavior. Know also that despite professionals orbiting around families, when kids develop severe problem behavior at a young age, let's say 5 years old, they become 10-year-old kids who engage in the same forms of severe problem behavior, who then become 15-year-olds with the same forms of problem behavior. If you're a young person in the field, please recognize that. Recognize that it's not inevitable, that the diagnosis of autism is not a life sentence of severe problem behavior. Prevalence rates show that more persons with autism do not engage in severe problem behavior. It is but a historical accident of learning that some acquire a repertoire of severe problem behavior. And when parents ask me, why my child, I don't have a good answer. No other behavioral scientist does. So I give the honest answer. That is not a scientific answer. And the honest answer is, it's an accident, and your child probably is a little bit more passionate than those other children. Your child has passion. And what we're going to do in this process is understand what they're passionate about and how to leverage that passion to teach them better ways to get along in this neurotypical world that they're stuck in. But let's go back to that 5-year-old with SIB and aggression. That 5-year-old with SIB and aggression, professionals like us will go to those meetings and we'll show topography graphs. We'll show the graph of SIB, and we'll show the graph of aggression and elopement. And we'll show that we're making a difference, and we do make a difference as behavior analysts, as special educators, SLPs and OTs. We make a difference with that child. I have no doubt about that. We're pretty good. But that child then becomes 10 and they have the same topographies of severe problem behavior, and we're trotting out the same graphs with the SIB and the aggression, the phase lines and the arrows and the asterisks. And they become the 15-year-old and they have the same forms of problem behavior, but they're much more manageable now because no one has any expectations for them other than to manage them. These are teenagers who are sitting in beanbag chairs and urine-soaked sweatpants, eating Fritos out of a paper cup, while staff hover at a distance in batting helmets and jean jackets and padding. That's what we're doing. We're known as the people with the pads, the people that do restraint and timeout. We're the 2-person carry people. That's not who we're supposed to be. That too is an accident, a historical accident, that we are the restrainers and the timeout people for persons with severe problem behavior. Now, how did that happen? It happens because we took on the problem. Some might argue that we were given the problem because no one else wanted it. That's a little more negative. I like to think about it that there are great people in our field who took on these problems. But because our technology was incomplete, we have become folks who have to restrain people and carry people and restrict and control people. And that is not a good word on the street for behavior analytic folks or special educators. That is not something we should be proud of. We shouldn't be proud of the fact that we can take a hit. We shouldn't be proud of the fact that we can deal with behaviors that other people would find disgusting and we do it routinely. We need to check ourselves and know who we are. We are teachers. We are coaches. We are people who can teach people how to live a better life. And what we've learned in the last couple of years is we can do this without touching kids. We can do this where they have complete control and autonomy in the process, where they can elect to participate in our therapeutic processes or not. And by so doing, we can minimize escalation and any of these other things that we're known for. I love being a behavior analyst. Some people think I don't because I'm a little negative sometimes about our field and the status of it right now. I love being a behavior analyst, and I'm not moving from that. I don't call anything we do anything but applied behavior analysis. But I do believe there are better and worse ways to proceed as a professional. I believe those things not because it's an opinion. I believe those things because I had the luxury of doing research for many years. I had the luxury to meet many families and continue practicing during those years. So again, I apologize for being negative, but I want us, as Megan Miller has made popular this phrase, I want us to do better. I want parents to see what we do as applied behavior analysts in film and on TV, and I want them to say, I want that for my child. That looks beautiful. I want ABA to be beautiful, and I know it can be because I've seen it. So today, we're going to talk about procedures. But let's not get lost. It's not about the procedures, it's about our priorities, it's about our values, it's about our respect for our future. That's really what we're talking about today. Where does the problem come from? This intractable lifestyle dictated by problem behavior where kids go from 5 to 10 to 15 with the same topographies of severe problem behavior. I want to play the blame game. So if you would, take a minute, because I've been barking at you and I know it's a little intense. I want you to take a minute to talk at your table. Why does the intractable lifestyle, why does the lifestyle dictated by intractable problem behavior exist? Where does it come from? And then we'll get back together as a large group and talk about it. So take a few minutes to talk at your table about where these lifestyles come from. Okay, folks, let's get back together as a big group. I know the conversation's not complete. I just wanted to get some responses at strength at your tables. This is going to be interactive throughout the 2 days. And so I am going to ask you to participate. And I know for some of you, you're excited to do that. And for many of you, you're about to have a panic attack. I understand that. I fully respect that. When I'm a listener, I'm more in that latter group, so I understand. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to call this side of the room, this side over here. I don't have any sense of direction, so I have no idea if this is accurate, but you're west side, okay? And you guys are east side, and you guys are on your own little pocket. We're going to call you Central Park. So you're Central Park. So the heat's on with Central Park because you have a smaller population. So you, Central Park, you really have to step up. Now the reason why I'm giving you those things is because when I ask a question, I'm going to walk towards the neighborhood and I'm going to say, east side, here I come. Now if you do not want me to call on you, all you need to do is not look at me. Just avoid me. Now, if everyone's mildly avoidant, I got to pick somebody, so I'm looking for wild avoidance. It's a great time to go get a coffee or put your head between your knees. Completely appropriate. Now, I'd also like to give the neighborhoods personalities. West Side, please know that you are gritty. You're the gritty West Side. All cities' West Side is gritty. East Side, you're a little more hoity-toity. Okay? Own it. Central Park, you're homeless. Okay? Just kidding. You're joggers. I don't know what you're doing. You're skating. You're lovely. You're just visiting. Okay. East Side, where does it come from? Here I come, East Side. Where do these intractable lifestyles dictated by severe problem behavior come from? Miss?
Luda.
Luda.
History of, I believe that's a lack of communication and history of acceptance of disability.
Oh, I like that. History of a lack of communication. Thank you. History with the lack of communication. And I like what you said the second time, even I think it's more powerful, simple acceptance of the problem. If you, like me, like to troll YouTube for videos of kids with autism, young adults with autism, you will find videos of parents laying on their child, trying to restrain them while they're trying to headbang or be aggressive, and the parent turns to the camera and says, this is what it's like to live with a child with autism. And it breaks me up a little bit because I want to reach out, talk to that parent and say, this is an accident of learning. This is not inevitable, and you don't need to live this way. Okay? Don't accept it. Have high expectations. It may take a process, but have high expectations that these are accidents. Self-injurious behavior, aggression is simply an accident of learning. There is no organic reason why someone needs to respond to environmental events with those particular behaviors. Okay? Great. Gritty West Side, here we come. Here I come. Here we come. That's strange.
I think not having the correct guidance and just being too darn tired to deal with it.
Very good. Some of you in this room, I understand, are parents and professionals. And you understand how tiring it is to deal with severe problem behavior with any regularity. Now, what I love is at the beginning of this conversation, people didn't start blaming parents. Thank you for not doing that. What we're going to embrace is the fact that what parents are doing to survive with a child with autism and severe problem behavior takes more energy than most of us put out in a given day. Emotional, psychological, physical. Our treatments need to require less energy than what parents are doing to survive. And if it doesn't require less energy, we cannot feel poorly about that person and give them heck for their failure to implement. Okay. When parents are tired through all their extreme parenting, the expectations simply go down because they have to. Our job is to help parents hold those expectations high with processes that allow them to do that. Okay, Central Park, it's on. Thank you, Hannah.
You're our spokesperson. Yeah, right, great. We said the environment of negative reinforcement, and then also intermittent schedules of reinforcement.
Ooh.
Pretty technical.
Speaking my language with the schedules, what was the first thing you said, though, Hannah?
Negative reinforcement.
In other words, it's embarrassing when you go out public, so people are doing things to quell the behavior, to keep the peace. We're going to talk about that. I call that behavior modification because I needed an M word. We'll talk about it. Your second one was?
Schedules of reinforcement.
It's a schedule. Intermittent.
Or variable.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a minute because it really foreshadows a very important tactic in our process. When all said and done with our treatment, we are going to have a particular schedule. It's called intermittent unpredictable reinforcement. You can't find it in the back of a textbook. It is not a VI. It is not a VR. It's certainly not F anything. Okay? Those are good schedules to learn, but the schedule of life is intermittent and unpredictable. When a child goes into the kitchen and can't yet speak but wants the cookie on the counter, they will engage in a behavior to get the cookie. Let's say they point. They start getting some cookies because they're connecting with the social world, and the professionals and the parents know, provide that reinforcer. And then they say, he's asking for cookies too much, so don't give him the cookies anymore. Well, two things might happen. He might it'll induce a tantrum. That'll be reinforced by somebody, the babysitter, the grandma, let's pick on grandparents. Or the professional will teach him demand. So they'll have a point, they'll have maybe a vocal response, cookie, and they also have a little tantrum. And those work sometimes. Intermittently, those behaviors work. And do they know exactly when it's going to work? There's some cues. There's some SDs, as just behavior analysts we would call them. But from the child's perspective, their little repertoire right now is maintained by unpredictable and intermittent reinforcement. And as their experiences go on, and they experience more no's and more waits, it induces more behavior, and their repertoire grows, and that repertoire is maintained by intermittent, unpredictable reinforcement. We are going to marshal the power of that same schedule to teach her, after we teach a repertoire, to maintain that repertoire. Communication, toleration, contextually appropriate behaviors. You shouldn't be able to turn on problem behavior because you're going to maintain them via intermittent, unpredictable reinforcement. The same way that repertoire of problem behavior developed over time. Okay. Let me get through the 5 M's so we can get to the procedures and the values. Why does problem behavior persist for me? I think my top candidate is because of behavior modification. And a lot of you might say, don't we do that? We do as behavior analysts. We do behavior modification, and I still do behavior modification sometimes. I love class-wide motivational systems. I love it when kids get to cut out pictures of puppies and put them on the wall, and the teacher gets little spots, and it's a very convenient token program. Whenever she sees some excellent behavior, she spots the child, and then the child can put the spot on the dog, and when they get 8 spots, they get a grab bag, and they can take it home, and they come to school the next day with a spider ring, and it's a great way to get kids to line up and put things in their cubbies and all that stuff. Good B-mod. I love it when a child is 4 years old and still peeing in their pants, and we can use Skittles to get them to realize that pressure means they were just paid. They have some liquid gold. And they put that liquid gold in the bank. They get a different form of payment. Will I use Skittles? Will I just stick them in a child's mouth right in the bathroom? No gloves? Yes. Yes, I'll do all of that. So behavior modification has its place. The trouble I have with behavior modification is if a child is motivated to run across the room, get on all fours, and bang their head against the ground, they are already motivated. And what we are doing with behavior modification in that context is saying, I don't know why you're engaged in that behavior. I don't know what your personal motivation is. But don't worry about that. Look at this. Look at this thing over here. I got a Skittle. And as long as you do not misbehave for X amount of time, you can earn this. And when that doesn't work, I have a token, and I have an activity, and I have a privilege, and I have praise. As long as you do not misbehave, you can earn this. By the way, that is the most common treatment on the ground right now for severe problem behavior. It's DRO, differential reinforcement of other behavior with arbitrary reinforcers. We are trying to inspire them to look away from the personal motivation. Does it work? Of course it works immediately. And when we go to the meeting, we can put a phase line, DRO, goes down. Does it work in the long term? Show me the study. It doesn't work in the long term because we're not dealing with the personal motivation, so then the reinforcers have to get more handsome, more expensive, more frequent. We change the schedules. We can carry this DRO thing out for 2 years. Make it momentary, whole, variable. There's all sorts of bells and whistles to the DRO. And when the DRO doesn't work, what do we then add? We add punishment. But it's a kinder, gentler time, so we add timeout or response cost. If it doesn't work, we're going to rip those tokens. Just make sure you understand that that behavior resulted in loss, or that behavior resulted in a period of time without. It's defensible. Those are justifiable outcomes. The problem is they don't work in the long term because we're not dealing with the personal motivation for the behavior. Again, you don't need more reinforcers for kids who engage in severe problem behavior. A lot of people like to say, well, he has no reinforcers. That's a profound misunderstanding of reinforcement. If the child is engaging in severe problem behavior, it is being reinforced. Our job is to figure out what those reinforcers are. For some children and young adults we meet, the most powerful reinforcer is escape from us asking them to do anything, restricting stuff from them, to just go into their autistic bubble and get their stim on. Whoop whoop, go into their sound booth and get it just right. Body rock, look out the window, wandering. The ability to get us to stop talking, restricting, and bossing, and then have the opportunity to be free to do what they want to do, that is the reinforcer for most kids with severe problem behavior, and there's other things on top of that. So I want you to flip the script a little bit. If a child has severe problem behavior, they are motivated. There are reinforcers right under our nose. We do not need extra reinforcers. We simply need to find the reinforcers maintaining that behavior and then leverage them to teach the skills. That's not behavior modification, folks. We're better than that. We are behavior analysts. There's a professional humility. I was a behavior modifier. I did direct care in group homes for a time. I managed group homes. I was out of my league. I readily admit that. I would have admitted that then. I'm certainly admitting it now. I was doing BMOD. Okay. What I loved when I went to the Kennedy Krieger Institute, and I went there because I was chasing a girl who's now my wife. What I love what they taught me is that to be a behavior analyst, you have a sort of professional humility. And that professional humility comes in the form of, I promise I won't attempt to change your behavior until I understand it to some extent. Behavior modification seems to lack that humility. It's almost like saying, I don't know why you're engaging in that extraordinary behavior, but it doesn't matter because I can change your behavior. And then we shoot reinforcers and punishers out. Behavior analysis has professional humility. I won't attempt to change your behavior until I try to understand it to some extent. That's a beautiful thing. Let's keep the beautiful things. Let's keep that one. Behavior medication. There's no psychiatrist here from what I told, so I don't want to go down this path. Please know I'm affiliated with the psychiatry department in Massachusetts, so we have these heart-to-heart discussions with people who prescribe. My main issue is there's no pill that teaches skills. And I know that freedom from problem behavior is predicated on learning a whole lot of skills. A social skill repertoire. Pills don't teach skills. That's obvious to anybody. Now some people might argue that pills allow for skills to be taught. But for me, I'm still awaiting those data or those experiences. So I want to make it clear, my concern with behavior medication is not for diagnoses like ADHD that are comorbid, say, with autism. I'm not talking about ADHD meds when a child is diagnosed with that. I'm not even talking about meds for depression or anxiety when kids have those comorbid diagnoses. What I'm worried about are medications to treat SIB, aggression, property destruction, that are usually off-label because they've been found to sedate people, and so we're using them to sedate persons with autism and severe problem behavior so they don't hurt themselves or others. I respect the fact that that's a tool in the toolbox. I respect them as emergency medications when things are really off the rails. But what I worry about is they become lifestyle medications. They were never meant to be lifestyle medications. There's good financial reasons for others to make them lifestyle medications. Books have been written about that. Please know, our job is not as data collectors for psychiatrists. Please know, our job is not to go to the psychiatrist and tell them how the child's doing. You have better tools in your toolbox. Please know that. Special educators, behavior analysts, you have better tools in your toolbox. Do you? Okay? Don't worry about the other professionals. Work nicely on the team. Be a good interdisciplinarian. But do your craft, because the solution for these problems in the literature is from behavior analysis. It's from people like you. Behavior modification, that's that fancy M word. I had to use a thesaurus for this one. I wanted something about appeasement. This is when Jolly has problem behavior with loud noises, so we give them headphones. And they don't like their food touching, so we buy plates with big walls. And they don't like tags, so they get tagless pajamas. And they get to learn over here, and we take this route to school. And the list goes on. It's also known as antecedent-only tactics. It's also known as proactive intervention. There is certainly a time and place for these things. In our process, at the very beginning of the process, we mollify, you betcha, right in the beginning. But our commitment is, as soon as we take away the tough stuff of life, we need to have an assertive plan to put that stuff back in place and make sure the child has skills to deal with those things. We know this is important because we can't protect kids from all the mundane things that perturb them. You see those parents sweating, moving 2 steps ahead of the child, figuring out what's going to happen and that might perturb the child and fixing the environment for them. It's a beautiful thing to see in many ways. It shows a lot of love when parents and teachers do that. But it is an overly sweaty procedure for adults. It is not sustainable. And what we're doing is leaving kids with latent problem behavior, so when those things come about naturally, they have no way to respond other than with severe problem behavior. So please know, when I did direct care, I wanted proactive. When they gave me an extinction-based treatment, I would raise my hand in the basement of that group home and I'd say, do you have anything at the proactive end? So when that big guy comes charging at me, I understand you're giving me something to do then, but I want something so that big guy never charges at me. So I understand the appeal of it from different perspectives, but please know, when we take away those tough situations for the learner, we're taking away the opportunity to teach. And that's what we do, we teach. We need those opportunities back in there. We'll talk about microanalysis, and we'll talk about skill development, obviously, today. So let's just get talk about the elephant in the room, perhaps. Many of you have been taught to do functional assessment a particular way, or the whole buffet of ways. And it involves this: a search for the function of a problem behavior. And by that I mean you're looking for, is it maintained by? Say it with me. West Side, is it maintained by? Is it maintained by? Escape? Attention? Tangibles, materials, and then everybody or? Yeah, that's our culture. We can have choral responding. It's so embedded in our culture, yes? Is it attention? Is it escape? Is it tangibles? Is it sensory? I'm thankful I got to learn functional assessment early in my career. I'm thankful I got to participate in research in this model. What we are talking about today, it was built up from that. It's so obvious. But what I worry about today, what I think is regrettable right now, is that that technology has existed since the early 60s when Lovaas did the first functional analysis. And we still have very few, if any, studies showing a socially meaningful outcome when the starting point was that mission of is it A, B, C, or D? And some of you young people in the room may be like, this guy is a lunatic. Of course we have literature on that. So let me be clear. I count the literature. I review the literature. I understand the literature. We have over 500 studies where that was the mission, and I'm lowballing it right now because I haven't checked recently. What I'm saying is when that's the mission, we can publish a lot of papers. But what I'm also saying is when that's the mission, relevant people like parents and teachers are not saying the problem's solved. The effects of treatments predicated on that mission are not socially meaningful. That process has not been socially validated. Mont Wolf is one of my heroes of ABA. And he told us that for us to buy into processes, that the procedures should be acceptable and that the outcomes meaningful. Now I waited and I worked hard to get meaningful outcomes from that process, and I did not achieve that goal with many, many families. I don't regret that. Looking back, I wish we got better effects, but I was hogtied by the systems I was using, by the way I was thinking about things. So we're going to talk a little bit about a different way of thinking about things. And let me just give the foreshadow. When parents ask me, why do kids engage in severe problem behavior? What does my child engage in severe problem behavior? I have an answer at strength before I even do an interview. It's not hubris, it's my assumption. And it's a really great and powerful working assumption that I hope you embrace. All kids' problem behavior is maintained by getting out of things they don't want to do the things they want to do, with people they like to do things with. And they want that person to do a few other things for them. It's always escape. All kids with severe problem behavior are trying to get out of something. It's always some sort of tangible, whether it's a little bead string or a fancy laptop. All kids want an audience. I have yet to meet a child with autism who wants to be alone. That is a sad myth. Kids with autism want us to zip it. Stop teaching them. Every time they pick up their favorite toy, don't ask them what color it is. That's their life. Their life is redirection, restriction, and timeout from what they want to do when we're near them. So they want space. They want reprieve. But that's not the equivalent of being alone. Because what our process has taught us is I haven't met a child who wants to be alone. They want an audience and they want us to zip it. All kids want to escape from something. All kids want some stuff. All kids want some love, some audience. And then there's always something else. Preferred conversation, access to rituals, manned compliance. We'll talk about that. They ask for something. If you agree to it, everything's lovely. If you don't, there's a meltdown. The only way to turn that meltdown off is to comply with demand. It's a dynamic contingency. It's been on the research book since 1995. It doesn't fit nicely in our typical process, so we've been ignoring it for that long. It's probably the most powerful and common reinforcer for problem behavior for children with autism who have language. I'll say it one more time. The most common and powerful reinforcer for kids who have language on the spectrum and who have severe problem behavior is manned compliance. It's not attention. It's not that simple. It's dynamic. Please do this for me. Okay, thank you. Please do this for me. Lovely, thanks. Please do this for me. You won't? Okay, whack, whack, whack. Now you will. That's manned compliance. And it's happening all over the place, okay? Okay.